Good night, everybody. Good night, Mikhail. I see you're on already with us. It's Conversation 473. Rolando is here, Kitaka is here, and we've got a special guest. We're continuing our series on youth in politics in Grenada, and we've had a very interesting week with the young men who are at the front. I'm getting a feedback, Kitaka, at the front of politics in Grenada. So welcome. I'm actually not seeing our guest on the screen, and we're going to bring him on a little later on. Kerry Velon Simmons is going to be chatting with us in the interview segment. But before we move into that on Conversation 473, a few other conversations are taking place in Grenada and in the world. One of the big conversations right now is the killing in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, of this unarmed black man who was choked. The video appears to be showing him being choked and dying on the spot, since paramedics were unable to get a pulse when they came on the scene. And he died. This triggered massive riots in that state and in the city of Minneapolis, as well as across the United States. In Los Angeles, Black Lives Matter blocked a major highway or something like that. And so that is the big conversation in the world. Another unarmed black man appearing to be murdered at the hands of police officers in the United States. And we've got some video here of what's been taking place in Minneapolis, the riots, because people are really very, very angry. And so can we take a look at that, Kitaka? Do we have that queued up?
Overnight, Minneapolis on fire. Protesters leaving an auto parts store in flames. Others seen looting a local Target.
Tonight was a different night of protesting.
All of it after demonstrators approached one of the city's police precincts.
We're about to lose the front of the precinct if we don't move this crowd out of the front.
Officers in riot gear tried to maintain order.
You can see the smoke bombs in the distance, and police have been firing pepper spray to try and disperse this crowd. Hundreds of protesters had gathered here, and now police are trying to push them back to keep the peace.
They'd gathered hours before, furious at the death of 46-year-old George Floyd.
When is it really going to change? When is it really going to stop?
The outrage building nationwide. In Los Angeles overnight, Black Lives Matter protesters blocked a major freeway. This man jumped on a police cruiser as it sped away. President Trump weighed in, saying justice will be served and that he's asking the FBI to expedite its investigation into the case.
We're seeing the clip, and this is a clip from news media in the United States. So Derek Chauvin is a police officer who is seen in the video with his knee on the man's neck, on his forehead, on Mr. Floyd's neck, and they've all been fired. The 4 police officers, I'm sure this video has been widely viewed, the video of what happened to him, and the 4 police officers seen in the video, based on news reports, were fired. But Chauvin, who is the main guy in this whole thing, who will most likely be charged for this man's death, is a 19-year veteran of the police force. And interestingly, he's had like about 12 misconduct reports against him and has never been disciplined. There are no disciplinary records. There are no records of disciplinary action in his police file, which is an interesting point to note based on what's been happening over the decades in the United States. It appears as if, more and more black men are being murdered in plain sight, and the situation is not improving. I mean, we heard the comments on President Donald Trump that with the looting comes the shooting, because people have also been looting, which of course should not be condoned, because the point that the protests are aiming to make would get lost in the noise of the criminal acts that are being committed as well. But protests across the United States, and you hear in the video, you can hear the man saying, I cannot breathe, and based on reports, he was being held down like that before he passed out for about 4 minutes, and was held like that for about 8 minutes. Now, within seconds, a person can pass out with that kind of choking at their neck and certainly die shortly afterwards. And you would think that a police officer would be aware of that kind of situation and that kind of outcome from that action. We also have the video of Mr. Floyd begging and pleading for his life. Kitaka, can we run that?
Okay. Karishka, we
Yes.
have to move from that video. We have to continue.
Oh, yeah.
Having all
Okay.
the
Well,
technical issues here.
all right. So, certainly this has grabbed world attention. Numerous reports over the decades in the United States of people being murdered, and certainly it is disgraceful to see this happening. Now, the mayor has been calling for them to be arrested and charged. I'm not sure if that has been done by now. I was unable to check before we started the show to double check on whether or not, but there seems to have been some dragging of feet when it comes to taking action against such a brutal act that was committed. So this is one big issue in the world right now. And coming closer to home, we're going to discuss also with our guest who is here to talk about youth in politics, but we're also going to be discussing with him those issues that we're bringing up. Now, coming closer to home and still connected to the United States somewhat, this week, a plane load of criminal deportees were brought back to Grenada. Grenada accepted them, and they are now here. In a conversation that I had with the Minister of Health earlier today, he confirmed that they are here, they've been brought in, and he says that they are being treated like any other person who is coming into Grenada at this time when we are under a lockdown and taking precautions to prevent COVID. And he said the same as everyone else coming into the country, rapid testing and quarantine. This is a quote from the Minister of Health. There is only one difference, and that is quarantine plus custody. So apparently they're also being held in custody. What Guyana has done, interestingly, is that Guyana sent back their deportees who arrived. They took them, checked their immigration status, realized that they had given up their Guyanese citizenship, and so the state of Guyana to refused to accept them and said they could not take responsibility for them since they are not their citizens. Here in Grenada, we have accepted them. We have been doing that. We've been, accepting criminal deportees for the longest while from the United States. People who would have gone, given up the rights to be a Grenadian, given up their Grenadian citizenship, some who were born there, and finding themselves in being convicted of crimes, many of them serious crimes, rape, murder, and armed robbery, and those kinds of things, serving their time in jail and then being dumped back into a society that can ill afford to deal with those major criminal situations. The police is already having a hard time with our little 2x4 criminals here. And so the Grenada government apparently has been very secretive on the arrival of the deportees. A report from the New Today newspaper says there was a media blackout about it. The Minister of Health did speak to me for a few minutes on the situation. I'm hoping to get back in touch with him later on to get some more information. But one of the questions we're going to try to explore on this program is, should the government have accepted them? I mean, do we have responsibility for an American citizen who commits a crime in the United States and is being dumped back here? Why are we still in 2020 being bandied about by the United States like that? As far as I'm concerned, that plane should not have been allowed to land. We should have blocked our runway. Take a stand on something, because now we have the problem. Not sure whether or not any of them are COVID-19 positive. They are being tested, as far as the minister said. They are going to be tested, have been tested or whatever. And once their quarantine is over, these are people who are going to end up right back in society among us. Is Grenada making a mistake by being so soft on the issue of criminal deportees? I know Jamaica has been accepting them as well. In fact, this week, the plane which brought those back to Grenada had stopped off in Jamaica to drop off the Jamaicans, and then come to Grenada to drop off those here. No word on where they are being quarantined or how they are being quarantined, how much of our police resources are being used to quarantine them. And certainly I would hope that it's not self-quarantine, because we already had a major crisis almost develop out of that self-quarantine position that we have taken. So I think we have some text, Kitaka, that we can put up that speaks about the Guyana situation, which is, exactly opposite to what we did here. The 21 Guyanese deported who arrived from the United States on Tuesday afternoon after serving jail terms for various offenses. have been sent back to the United States. According to the Guyanese Immigration Department, the deportees had renounced the Guyanese citizenship and are Americans. And I actually can't see the rest of the text the way you have it up on the screen. Okay, head of the Guyana Police Force, the GPF, Criminal Investigations Department, Wendell Blanham, said the deportees were convicted for homicide, narcotics, robbery, and other offenses. And this is from newsbugmedia.com in Guyana. So, we can certainly expect that, criminals are criminals and they don't change. So this is apart from the risk of COVID, of a whole bunch of people arriving here with COVID. And also, interestingly, what I want to say about this is that the government had refused for many, many weeks to open our airport for chartered flights to bring Grenadians back home. Norwegian Cruise Lines, for instance, weeks and weeks ago, chartered a flight and was willing to bring Grenadians home. Those Grenadians are still on a cruise ship somewhere out of Miami. They are still not able to come home. And this was a chartered flight. It was not a commercial flight. They would have come, be put in quarantine. And Grenada refused to accept our citizens. And this week, we would have gone ahead and accepted mostly American citizens and criminal deportees at that. So these are the two big issues, one local, one international, that we've been looking at, Kitaka and I have been looking at today. And we're going to take a break right now and a word from our sponsor. When we come back, we're going to talk about those issues. We're going to ask our guest, a young politician, to weigh in on those issues as well and to talk to him about his political work, his political aspirations, and his views on the direction that Grenada is going. We'll be right back.
It is time for Grenada to define for herself what independence means.
What has happened here this morning has made me feel confident to face the future, with fortitude, strength, and with hopefulness.
People begin to understand that our lives don't have to be so hard. Things can change,
We are all currently facing the same crisis and very similar challenges. And no one can afford to be myopic or bigoted in this fight. We have no choice but to work together.
We have heard the call, and we are determined to come out of this pandemic greater than we entered.
We're back, Kalista.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. Kitaka, the comments have been coming, a lot of the comments. Can we have everybody on the screen, please?
Okay, 1 second.
Yeah, lots of comments on those two issues that we just covered. And one of the things to note is that, we were talking about when I said that Grenada actually should take a stand. And, it might be a bit difficult, as Kellan's comment reminded me. The United States is usually using the big stick policy and have threatened sanctions on countries who refuse to take the deportees. So he says, essentially, I think smaller countries don't have a choice. Well, I don't know, but it's similar to cutting down the mangrove and Judd Cadet saying the other night that we don't have a choice but to destroy our environment because we're so small. So I welcome Kerry, Velon, Simmons. It's the first time I'm meeting you. I've heard about your party. I believe that's the party that my good friend Kevin Pitterkin would have run with. Was he with you? Was Kevin with you?
Yes, he was.
Or did he have his own party?
No, he's with the Progress Party.
I'm not hearing Kerry Kitaka.
Oh, I'm hearing him. We're hearing him clearly. You hearing him, Miss McQueen?
I am.
Okay. You Kalista, may I have to pull your headphones
Kitaka,
out?
you resolve the problem. Go ahead and talk to us. Tell us who. I read some of your bio. It seems that you have some background in media. You actually studied journalism as well. And you don't practice. I don't see you in the field here or read anything with your byline. What's up with that? You're also into filmmaking. So a very interesting background. We've had people this week, the young people we've had have been doing, agriculture and finance and various other things. Now you're in a profession after my own heart, media and filmmaking.
Yeah.
So welcome to the program. Tell us a little bit about Kerry.
Well, first, it's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate the invite. I normally don't accept media invites because, the discussion is usually not meaningful where we talk about policy and things like that. So I'm glad you're able to do your due diligence on the background stuff. But I'm the current political leader of the Progress Party. I'm a U.S. Army veteran, and I've worked in various capacities in the automotive industry. The hands-on side, being a mechanic, and also the sales and marketing side. I've worked for various companies: Hyundai, Honda, Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge. I've also worked in logistics and transportation for FedEx, Alaska West Express. And currently, I'm in the higher education field. I work for a popular mostly online university, even though we have a campus. And over the past few years, I've worked in the School of Business as a military academic advisor and an adjunct instructor. As the title suggests, I manage a caseload of about 250 military affiliated students, current military members, veterans, spouses. I am the mentor, the advocate, the main go-to support person at the university, and overall their success coach. We interact regularly. I share my knowledge, and I also learn from the experiences and the background. We discuss various topics: liberal arts, business law, politics, economics, math, diversity, leadership, and more. Apart from serving on active duty in the military, I've also spent 2 years at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, experimenting with different styles of leadership. I do believe I have the ability to think through problems and the information literacy skills to make important decisions, especially as it relates to politics. Apart from all of those, I've earned a bachelor's degree in communications with honors from Salem State University in Salem, Massachusetts. I've also earned a master's degree in education with a concentration in teaching English from Liberty University in Lynchburg, Virginia. And I'm currently a PhD candidate with about a year left in my program. My dissertation will focus on educational leadership and the transformation, educational leadership and its relations to the transformation of Grenada. Finally, I'm a father. I have big children, as we will say in Grenada. My hobbies are filmmaking. I've worked with many local artists, mainly music videos, Little Vaughn, Skinny Bantan, and many other artists in the island. So that's who I am in a nutshell, and I'm looking forward to a meaningful discussion this afternoon.
Okay, interesting. Well, both from your accent and your you have lived in the United States, and that story that incident that we spoke about earlier in the program. This is something that you have lived. You have lived as an at-risk human being as well. I mean, just by being black in the being a black man in the United States can get you killed.
Yeah, of course. And
have you ever had any negative experiences based on your race?
All my interactions with police have been negative. I mean, no incidents have led to arrest, but just the interactions being stopped. At one point, I had Army veteran plates on my car, and I thought maybe I would have been given a little bit of leverage in an essence. But that never happened. I was still being stopped with various questions, asking where you're going. And it's just been crazy. The funny thing too is I recently took a concealed weapons permit course, and the majority of the course was about how to behave when you get stopped by the police. So in an essence, they're trying to teach us, the ordinary citizens, how to be calm and prevent a police from escalating a certain situation and things like that. But overall, my experience haven't been pleasant. I'm just fortunate that I've been able to maintain my cool and just do what they say to do, give them an ID, whatever, and go along with my business.
If I may come in here, Kalistra, people talk a lot about America. There is no difference to the harassment of black men in the UK. I see it all the time. The stress we black mothers, when you have a black son, every time they walk out of your front door, you have to go on your knees and pray to God that they return safely. Most of our black men in the UK, there is more black men in the UK in mental institute or jail than in higher education. Our men have it hard, they have it tough, our young boys. A 10-year-old going to the police station and seeing a 10-year-old, or the police walk in when they come from school. I remember my son saying to me, coming from school, the police are stopping and asking them if they believe they're in gang and things like that. So it's a total harassment. And then it comes with the kids when they reach a certain age, has to join a gang because they're doing it for protection. That's why I always, we have to bring our kids back and let them know that they can go to Africa, they could come to the Caribbean. There is so many black women with mental health issue worrying about their kids. I am a black mother to a black son. I remember once saying to a friend of mine that had three sons, and I said to her, I find she was not supporting them enough. And I went to her, very angry, and I said, come on, your sons need more of your support. And she said to me, how many have you got? I said, one. She said, well, I've got three. She said, when you finish fighting for the first one, you haven't got the energy to fight for the next two. It is tough being a black parent in England, America, in any of this in the white man country. It is a tough job. This is the reason why most of us have autoimmune disease, because we suffer from stress. The stress the police and the system put us through is just unbelievable. And that is the reason why when I come down here, and as I say, my office was opposite the courthouse, and I see the same thing happening here with our men. It seems like they're sending the orders from America and places. This will just stress out our black guys. We stress them out. They cannot do anything. It's like the bus men. Now, they want 50 cents and they will pressure them and they will push them. Enough is enough. That is the reason why it is a tough one. Maybe, as we go along, maybe people will come out and they will tell you how difficult it is to be a black man in this world now. When I saw what happened to this guy.
It's not just now. I mean, the problems that black men and black people and black men in particular face goes back, I mean, hundreds of years. The history of this, the genesis of this goes back, to slavery. What we saw of this guy being killed on the ground in the road in Minneapolis is similar, or even, we've seen worse pictures depicted of people hanging from trees. Some people lynched just for smiling or being accused of smiling at some white dame, and so on. So what we are seeing is that the world and the United States in particular has not moved on from 300-400 years ago. They have not moved on from that point, and the same thing is still happening. They're using guns and knees now, and instead of ropes, but certainly the world has not moved on. And in the Grenada, as far as the Grenada situation is concerned, there is a little bit of that. I mean, you can tell sometimes just at the court, I observe how the police treats the white folks versus the black folks who come to court. If a white complainant comes to court, they're given special seating. They're allowed to sit with the prosecutor and treated with kid gloves. They can wear whatever they want. They can wear armless and slippers and stuff like that. And the black people, the locals, the Grenadians of black complexion who come into the court, if you're wearing the wrong shoes, you are attacked and sent out of the court. The prosecutors sometimes barely want to deal with you to communicate with you to ensure they put on the best possible case. And it worries me that even here in Grenada, where we are still our own people, we are doing it to our own people to a certain extent. But definitely, what we face here is child's play compared to what they face in America.
Well, as I said, we don't hear. I think if we had more guns in England, we would be here. We would be seeing a lot of the same murder that is going on here. I remember once speaking to a friend of mine who worked for the ex Home Secretary, and he said to me he visited one of the remand center, and he said to me, when you go into a remand center in the UK, it is full of young black boys. The crime they may commit something very, very, very simple, and they do not have pity on them. I have white friends that have done things over and over and over, and they just get a slap on the hands. So the people that are coming back, sometimes, before we rush to judgment, sometimes people go into crime, not because they want to go into crime, because there is just nothing there for them. It's the survival of the fittest. And
I don't know. I don't see how committing a crime justify any bad treatment you can have. It's one thing to commit a crime by hurting somebody who tries to hurt you, but people who commit a crime so that they can survive or they can live. I mean, we cannot accept that or condone that.
Kalisha, sometimes people you cannot, in places like America and England, and you can't go and pick a mango from a tree. Or I remember once a young guy came down to Grenada on holiday. His parents was from the UK, and his friend turned around and said, why everything he speaks about is money, money, money. And it took a while for him to settle down, because in England, if you have no money, you don't eat. In Grenada, if you don't have money, you eat. You and your friends go to the beach, you swim, you hold some fish, you eat, you put on a pot. It is totally different. You cannot, if you don't have money, you don't eat. You have to survive. It's survival of the fittest.
But we do. I mean, we have Kerry here. We're not really asking Kerry any questions. But coming closer to home to the return of the people, the green card holders, and the people who overstayed their time, and so those who came back this week to Grenada, stirring up some conversation here. As a budding politician, Kerry, what the position that our small countries face, where we seem to be at the mercy. Is he gone?
One second. I was just asking a question. He dropped off.
Oh, okay.
So he should get back in. Maybe I've had some internet problems. But in terms of what you guys been speaking about Grenada, the world, in terms of racism and the issues that are happening, for me, I'm kind of tired of the ranting and raving when an activity is filmed, or when we see some video go viral, and everyone is like, "Oh my God, this new thing is happening." But I mean, if we really have an anchored historical context and even a deeper understanding of what goes on every day, that small video so is a very small fragment of what's going on in terms of in the black communities, there being only mainly junk food, stores all over, people eating foods that are making them sick, mass incarceration rates of black men in prisons and all those things. So for me, I think as a black race, the only way we have to really save ourselves is to unify and to really strategically put things in place to get to a point where we can really stand firm and not be picked off because we're divided. And I mean, if we look at how the social stratification is in America and many other countries, if you look at the pyramid, you fall on the bottom rung of the pyramid, because that our race just a couple of years ago, hundreds of years ago, were seen as property and chattel in this part of the world. So it's also crucial for us not to take our foot off the pedal when we make a little money and get a little house and move on up and forget to people. because it's a lot of work that needs to be done to create systems and structures that could be able to give us a fair share of what we deserve on planet Earth. And even within our thinking as well, like we need to even stop thinking like we are trash and don't accept being treated like trash. Because again, you have to claim it. You can't expect the oppressor to give you the tools of your own liberation. And I think we really have to put some work in planning and unifying ourselves and really putting our efforts into systematic ways in which we can come out of the systematic imprisonment. Because to beat systems, you need some other strategy and plan. Else we just look over and go back home, drink a rum, watch TV, and don't really consistently take ourselves to the success of the goal that we would have. So I need to make that point because social media is going crazy about the issue. But then when that fizzles off, what happens? What policy are you going to change? What business? Where are you going to spend your money? Where are you going to support the same people that are going to keep it down? Are you going to support your brother to build up each other so we could be able to take care of each other? So all those types of things I think is very crucial to note as well in this whole discourse. I've not seen Kerry come back as yet, Kalistra. Let me try to get him back on.
Yeah, but I mean, I think what you're saying is that the black people, we are our own worst enemies. In a way, we encourage our own oppression, which is really sad. As you were speaking, what came to my mind was that you have all of these powerful black people in the United States, but I am not sure I'm feeling the vibes of them trying to use their influence and their power and their money to change things for the regular guys who live in the projects and the double wides. And so they just seem to be, I'm sure, they make donations to causes and they talk the talk, but I'm not really feeling a major, since Martin Luther King, I am not feeling a major impact on change in America coming from the black powerful people. And some of them have, achieved great power, but I don't think that they're focusing their energies on making that, helping to make that change.
Yeah, Kerry, you're back with us. Can you hear us, Kerry?
Kerry? And you have his mic muted too.
No, his mic is muted on his end. Kerry, can you hear me?
No, he's not. He's not hearing you. So message him, Kitaka, and tell him what you need him to do. Can you hear us now, Kerry? Oh, he's gone. Right. So there have been a lot of comments on the chat there. Raphael Arthur is a little upset with us because I think he is. Because he says our take on the deportees situation is not quite accurate, that the people who are coming back are green card holders, permanent residents, and people who overstayed their time. And he believes that Grenada is obligated to bring their citizens back home. And interestingly, Grenada is obligated to bring their citizens back home. Yes, they are. You cannot refuse entry to a Grenadian. There's nothing in the law that allows any government to do that. And in fact, if you do that, it is in breach of people's rights. You've got to be able to come home. But what we're seeing with the deportees situation this week, and apparently the deportees were scheduled to arrive since February, and that was delayed as a result of COVID-19, according to Raphael Arthur, one of our regular viewers. But what it shows is that Grenada was willing to open the airport to accept a flight of deportees from the United States, but the Grenadians who were out there working hard on the cruise ships, sending monies back to their families, being productive, they most of them are still at sea, so literally at sea, floating off Miami on various cruise ships. And so yet again, when it comes to how action by the decision makers, inconsistency, because if you can open the airport now to bring in people who may even be who are high risk as well, coming out of detention centers and prisons in the United States, and
Kalistra,
refusing.
but Kalistra, I think it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure from the United States as well. And I mean, for centuries, in the United States have put that level of pressure on countries within the Western Hemisphere. As America, if we go back in history to the Monroe Doctrine and Manifest Destiny and so on, where America literally told the world that they can do what they want in the Western Hemisphere. That's their countries. They can do what they want, whenever they want, how they want. And so they can always use the systematic structures and policies and little laws and so on to put pressure on the smaller islands to do their bidding. So at this stage, they can find a list of things to say, okay, you have violated your green card, you have done this, you have done that. And I mean, it's Grenadians, so we have no choice but to take them in. But my thing is developing systems and structures. It's Marquin, is to develop structures and systems so as to be able to deal with that. Because the ostracism, them not having a job, them being seen as the bad apple, sometimes creates an antagonistic energy that actually makes them go back into that way of functionality, that criminal mindset. So like we really have to have a way to really rehabilitate and heal them and give them that love and support so that they can turn away from that criminal way and really bring their skills and talents to the country, because I don't think we really have a choice as a small country in this situation. I mean, our resources to expend on trying to fight that battle with America.
You know, the way Black people are treated in this country, when you look at it, that we have built Europe, I could speak about Europe because I've spent nearly 40 years there, you know, and I personally, I could say, because of the job I did, the area I lived in, I haven't suffered the prejudice most people have. But I will not sit here and say that it does not exist. Because I care about people. It may not have happened to me, but I've seen what it has done to other people because I open my eye, I care about my people. People will turn around and say it's not happening. But when you see the embarrassment, because when you are stopped, the police stop a young Black boy, what they try to do is to humiliate them. They will have them lying down on the floor. They will strip them, they strip their pockets out, you know, and one of the things they would love to say, when they ask, why are you stopping me? Oh, because somebody commits a robbery or commits something and they look like you. I can tell you firsthand, I see the effect and the frustration. You know, and as far as I'm concerned, if they have to keep burning, let them keep burning until we get an answer. Some have to die for others to be free. It is time that we say enough is enough. These Black men out there are suffering, you know, and stopping every time you go out your front door, right? I am the mother of a Black son. I have friends that had, you know, if a Black boy does something, you know, and he goes to court, you know, they may go to prison for the slightest thing. It's the same thing, the same like the weed here. Somebody have a little bit of weed. Most Black men in prison in America and in England is for having a bit of spliff. They want to criminalize you, get your DNA. The police stop you, they arrest you, you are innocent. And it's guys from poor background. They want your DNA. It's like they're collecting DNA. I remember in England, they wanted to go into the prison in Jamaica to collect the prisoners' DNA because they wanted to do some research, right? It's about time we open our eye and start building our country, our island. You know, it's been 400 years now from the first slave that landed in America, and Africa is saying to come back. Let us build Africa where our children are not going to be murdered on the street or made to feel like second-class citizens. When you go for a job that you see advertised, and you go in and they look at you and they say, no job was advertised, and you are forever fighting. It seems like a fight every day. You are fighting, right? Have maybe some Black kids that been up there and let it tell you, you don't have to be a criminal. Your skin, the color of your skin makes you that. you have a nice car,
Well,
you
yeah, but
must be
it's
selling
Macri.
drugs.
But it's Macri, I think it starts with us. I mean, really, right now, like, you really have to start with you, with me, within ourselves. Like, you first have to start to eat well, think well, create a healthiness in your body, have a level of consciousness, read, study, figure out things. Like, we have to strategize our way out of that. Even if you go back to history, Toussaint Louverture and them in Haiti didn't just get up one day, drink some rum and say, oh, you're going to do well. Listen, they have to plan, the time, when Massa doing this, when that happening. You have to structure it so that when you're going for goals, you're not just riling up crazy for no purpose and going to march with placard for no purpose. You have to know that this is not a sprint. This is not Usain Bolt running a 100 meter. This is a marathon. We have to develop scientists. We have to develop farmers, intelligent people that could build society, that could create systems that we don't dependent on other people to give us. Because once you're dependent on them, they could still control you. And we have to hold our destiny in our own hands. Because we have what it takes, but we're scattered, we're unified, we're living and supporting each other. And we need to do that first. Because cooperation and unity, that is why Marcus Garvey and other people was not able to achieve those goals. Marcus Garvey wanted to do those things back then, the Pan-African movement, all those things. So the unity, the togetherness to work, to go beyond petty prejudice, to go beyond all them things that divide us, the church, the religion, the politics, the color, the money, and let we work together for humanity and put us on a standard where we could.
Our ancestors had never stopped fighting, We always fought. Our ancestors, we have been fighting. Our ancestors has been fighting for 400 years. We never stop. They never let us down. They have always stopped. And if you look, we have doctors. It's about, as you rightly said, it's about getting us together and coming together to building that strength. If you go into the medical field in England, wherever it is, one of the best doctors, they are all black. So it's getting together. And we could only do that by these corrupt governments that we have. People that rule in our country, whether it's in Africa, whether it's in the Caribbean. The only time we're going to get together is to get rid of this corruption, these corrupt leaders in them from our country.
Kerry, are you back with us, Kerry? Can you hear us, Kerry?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hi, Kerry. So yeah, sorry for that, Kerry. But for Kerry, like, what do you see as a solution, as a leader, as a man who have governed squadrons and dealt with complex missions and solving problems and so on? Like, where do you see a solution to this problem that is plaguing the black community in, like, where you're from, where you're living right now in America and other parts of the world?
I think a lot of it, and I may have missed a whole lot. I think it's just working together to build the community. Like if you look at the business sector and everything, many of the CEOs and everyone who owns business, founders and so on, they are, not people like us. They're white folks. So we have to build our own. Education is segregated, whether we want to accept it or not. So many of the issues we have, it relates to just like when we're trying to go into those different sectors, we have a diversity issue. And many companies are using that now. They're leveraging diversity to increase profitability and all that stuff. So they're realizing the power of having a diverse workforce, a diverse teaching force, and so on. And we, the underrepresented minority, we bring that certain level of diversity to whether it's higher education, whatever sector it is. And as it relates to our own community, like the homeland Grenada itself, we just are not working together. For example, it's like in this space is where we have this kind of discussions, but of all the younger politicians and everyone that I know who are engage in politics and things like that, we are not meeting on a regular basis and have that discussion about stuff. Some people have an issue because of personality, and personality issue is going to be an issue. You're going to have personal clashes and all that stuff. But one thing I learned from the military is that when the mission is more important than the issue you have with someone. And we have learned to put aside our minor differences. I've had people who had my back, but once we're back and we come back from a mission, we fighting like cats and dogs, but we put all that aside when we are focused on one thing and we go out there and we get it done. So I just think we lack togetherness, and we also lack a shared vision. No one can really say what the vision is for Grenada, or where we trying to get to. There is so many great policies on the books. The Blue Growth Master Plan, great policies or drafts, whatever you may call it, but we lack that togetherness that we need so we can implement those plans and things like that. So I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a leadership flaw, because at the end of the day, it is the government of the day to reach out and bring in different people's I mean different people with different perspective to help solve those problems. And the same thing goes for the black community, as we were mentioning earlier. We just not working together, and we're letting other people come open up shop in our area and make tons of money, and we become the main consumers, you know what I mean? So that's a big issue. We are just turning into consumers as opposed to producers and building wealth, generational wealth, and all those things. So we need to focus on what we really want for our future, and apply a little bit of generational thinking in order to solve problems.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can
Yes.
hear.
As a young politician, what hope do you have for the young people in Grenada coming together and demanding more from the government?
I do have hope. I have a lot of hope, but um, again, it's not going to take, yeah, one man can spark a change, but anyone who really understands change, and in terms of changing the direction a country is heading, it takes a larger participation, like a larger group of people. Like if you look at the civil rights movement and you compare big shifts that happen in other countries, is the ordinary citizens, people who were not necessarily involved in politics or things like that, that really sparked those changes. And then a leader was able to emerge during those changes. That's how Martin Luther King and those people came about. The Malcolm X, they came about in a period where the people are already initiated the changes. You look at again our neighbor Puerto Rico. We had a governor retired recently because he was accused of corruption. And it's the people, the ordinary people, that took a stance and took to the streets and demanded his resignation, and he had no choice. So we can do a lot in numbers. And I think it has a lot to do with information, because we're not putting out the information out there, and the main media outlets that we have in the country, they are not doing their due diligence as far as keeping the public informed, and just being that kind of like oversight body that we need to look out for government. You know what I mean? So in an essence, they are not really trustworthy. And then we have we have like maybe it's I don't know, maybe they're influenced by whoever the ruling party is of the day, but we just don't have those independent support that we need from different sectors. Everything is kind of like it's like different cults. For example, if I want to work in Grenada, that's never going to happen because of political affiliation and other things. But I think there is a lot of people in politics with a lot of potential. They have a lot of great ideas. I know who all the players are. I think they're great people and all want what's best for the country. We may be suffering a little bit um, from maybe too many chiefs. I think we have a lot of chiefs. What I think we as young politicians need to do, we need to all come together under one umbrella. We can have our own democratic process where we elect a certain leader, and we can all move forward and have a unified voice. I think that's the best way about it. Like right now, we have too many divisions. We have the Progress Party here, we have this here, we have that here, and we have all of this. So it's so much noise. And to the bigger parties who are players, it's just we are just like minor distractions, and we know our full power, because many of us have I've come in contact with leadership from the other organizations trying to recruit us and things like that. So they recognize the power that we hold. So we just have to find a way to kind of like work together, put aside our petty differences, whether you don't like my hair color or whatever it is, or whatever it is. We just have to find a way to put aside that and work for the common good. Like put our differences aside and work for Grenada and forget all the other things that's going on. This is the only way forward, I think.
So Kerry, you started a party at the last election. You fielded 3 candidates and took part in that election. Like that whole process, that campaign, that process of contesting an election. What were some of the major lessons you learned through that process?
Well, first and foremost, I learned exactly who my friends are, who my friends aren't, and who my true family are as well. Because again, going into politics, we faced a lot of opposition, and it wasn't opposition from the people. It was opposition from other politicians who are in politics that just felt entitled, like this is theirs, and we have no business coming into politics and things like that. I also think we were able to inspire other people to get into politics. Um, but overall, I for certain it's a costly process, which is why in the 2018 Progress Party manifesto we touched on electoral reform, where we talk about funding for small organizations and things like that. And some may say, well, Grenada is not ready for a third party. I think whatever it is, we are ready for a third choice. But it's funding plays a big role. Um, and whoever has the most money at the day will most likely, I wouldn't say win an election, but will most likely buy an election. Because again, when you go back to the Electoral Commission or elections office or whatever, there is just no policy in place to keep track of campaign funding, where the money comes from, and there is no assistance to the other political organizations and things like that. And that's what makes it very difficult for other political organizations to have a voice, or even to build up like the momentum they need to actually contest an election. You can have the 15 candidates and all that stuff, but to sustain momentum, you need funding. We just doesn't have that structure where and I think it falls back on people as well, because people don't necessarily donate to political organization and things like that, and political organization need donations from the regular citizens and things like that to to develop policies and to consultation and just the basic running of an organization. So I learned about the true cost of it, and I also most importantly learn exactly who my friends are, man. But it was a great experience, I think, and I don't think I'll change it. And maybe I'll return and contest another election. I don't know yet.
Kalista, not hearing you, Kalista. Nah. No. Yeah. So Kerry,
Yeah.
so that was interesting, but as well, so campaign funding is interesting. You mentioned that. How do you see, or what ways you think we can go about to solve that problem and to kind of level the field where a party who may have people who are genuinely vested in the country but may not necessarily have that financial muscle, to give them a more equitable chance at an election. Because what I'm getting from what you're saying is that the task is significantly slanted, and those who are endowed with finances usually are able to spend on the large campaigns, bring on the artists, have the level of fanfare and so on, and financial resources to circulate, to round up and galvanize the people, transportation to bring people to vote, all those things. So what you think can be done to really level that playing field?
I mean, I personally have an issue with transportation. I don't think anyone should be, paying for people to come to the rally. That's the same as kind of like renting a crowd. Um, so I'm against that. But I just think we need some kind of policy that kind of limit funding in an essence, and it has to be accounted for. So whatever dollar you spend has to be accounted for. We have to know exactly where it comes from, because it's an issue with especially the American political system, where corporations have infiltrated politics, and now they're writing policies and kind of like masking it as if it's a policy that comes from that actual politician. So that is happening because now corporations are treated as a voter. You know what I mean? But it all goes back to just, and I've went to these meetings with the electoral office, and I've made suggestions, but all they say is, hey, when you are elected, you can make those changes. It is not supposed to be up to me. It's supposed to be based on that office operating as an independent entity, and also making decisions in terms of best practices. That's what they have to do, because again, they have explored ways to raise the fee, right? So if you're a candidate and you contest an election, they have been trying since the last election to raise the fee that you have to pay to when you go to the nomination process or whatever like that. And maybe in the next election that fee will be out of reach for most of the smaller political organization. But in the absence of those policies, I think it's the public need to take an interest in what is going on, and they need to endorse their local politician, whoever you like, whoever policy you support. And we also need open endorsement from a certain business, whatever it is. You can come out and say who you're supporting. But I don't know. I really don't know why people is so afraid to speak up and things like that. I don't see it as maybe I'm a little bit naive. I don't see it so much as victimization, because when we talk about victimization, we're giving too much power to scared little people in a suit. That's how I look at these people who are, accused of victimization. They have all the security around them, but they're just little scared people in a suit, and we're giving them too much power when we talk about that. And as a people, we already have the collective human resources, and in numbers, we are larger in numbers, and we can certainly come together and donate to the little political organization. When a political organization is having a little event, whatever it is, go out, support, donate, do all these things, and that's another way to fund campaigns.
Question here from someone is, what is your view? What are your views on the current economic situation faced by Grenada, and what do you think should be done to ease that burden?
Well, I mean, I've mentioned this before. I just, I like to curse too. So I think our economy is crap. I think oftentimes government boasts so much about how well the economy is doing, but one way to assess an economy is to look at the poverty levels and the standards of living and youth unemployment. That's another way to look at it. We can also look at our trade deficit. Um, Look at things that add to the multiplier effect, such as taxes, and debt. The majority of our budget goes towards servicing bad debt. So clearly, you can connect it to a decision, and it's a systems issue, a decision that was made some years ago. But the funny thing about it, and I don't mean to use the word funny, what's strange about it is that when these people are long gone from politics, we are the ones that are going to be stuck with those bills. We are the ones that's going to be impacted by the decisions they made 10 years ago, and so on. So that's another thing I try to look at. I try to go back in time. Like, again, I don't mean to jump off a topic, but if we look at these Grand Lake issues, this is an issue that started way back in '69. And this is for a whole nother discussion. But that's one way to look at issue. You look at where it started, and then you try to solve that issue through various lenses: political, structural, systems, all these various lenses, just trying to look at a problem from a 360 perspective. But overall, we just talking all the time. We just talking about solutions and how to solve problems, but we are not implementing anything. We are not including youth, young people. And we need that kind of input from young people, because it's their future at stake. And it's not about youth standing up and doing all this stuff. It's about giving them a seat at the table. So just putting two young politicians in place, or two young senators or whatever, that doesn't really make a difference. We need youth representation in every sector, in education. If we're talking about why people are failing CXC or whatever the case is, we need to get it and understand it from students' perspective as well. But overall, we just lack that collaboration where we include people. Everyone need to have a say in how the economy is going to transform. Farmers, fishermen, Again, I was looking at this blue growth master plan, whatever it is. It looks good on paper, but when you look at whoever they consulted with, I don't think yeah, um, regular fishermen had a say in things like that. And to me personally, and this is my perspective, I think it looks more like a tourism plan, because every little sector in terms of the zones, it looks like there's a resort going down, a resort, a marina, or all that stuff going on. And again, this is some of the issues that we're having. We are just not focused on where we're trying to take this country. And we too focus on one sector at a time. And it's nothing wrong with being focused on the sector because it's easy. It's easy money. You have a beach. Everyone likes the beach after a long winter or whatever it is. But we need to actually diversify the economy. And we need to look at other ways. Like whenever we propose all these things, the first thing that comes to my mind is waste management, because you cannot do anything without looking at waste management. You know what I mean? Or trying to protect the environment and things like that. And there's a lot of money in waste management as well. And I just think we just rely too much on the whole system. That tariff system is what I call it, which is so regressive. It makes everything expensive, and it's the regular citizens that pay for it. So we need to find a way to probably reduce tariffs on certain things. There's tariffs on everything. That's my biggest issue with this economy. Tariffs. Like, come on, you look at a car, 160 or whatever percent for a car. Would you go to the store and buy a pair of shoes and it costs them $26 to pay to make it, and then that person is telling you, well, I want 160% of the cost of the value of it? This is what's going on at port, and everybody feels it. You order parts for your vehicle, it costs so much for this parts. So all this cost is transferred to the regular citizen, and that is why our economy is suffering, because most people are that we're not spending. Spending is what drives an economy. So we have all this billions sitting in the bank if you look at the banking sector, but we're not spending. We don't really have a nightlife. How many of us go out and have a good time? This is not happening because we have to worry about buying all these other things that is inflated. So I mean, we can talk about the economy in different sectors in different ways, but we are just not focused on trying to like really help people, and an economy should be geared towards really alleviating poverty and doing all these other things. Because if our most important asset is the people and the people are struggling, it certainly means our leaders are not focused, or they certainly are not committed to really solving issues. And that's what we need. We need people who can go in there and look at the problems at different levels and consult people from different sectors and different walks in life and try to solve these issues.
One of the things, Kerry, yeah, hi, Kerry. One of the things we've been speaking quite a lot about is this letter from Michael Baptiste. I found out today that we are, I think, approximately $1.3 billion in debt. When you look at what a Grenadian own wages, and we have lost to bad investments or people stealing from us over 300 million US. It frightens me because I'm still getting into debt. I mean, with COVID, we'll be borrowing more. What hope have you got for the future for our young people? If they're going into debt of 1.3 billion, how are we going to get away from that? How are we going to get out of it without losing our island?
Well, like I mentioned before, there is a lot of good policy on the books as far as doubling GDP and things like that. But I think what we need is, as I mentioned earlier, other things that can add to GDP. And there is a lot of opportunities, but I think we sell ourselves short, especially with foreign investments. Many of these monies are not. They're not put back into the economy. If you own a foreign business, in most cases they don't reinvest in the company. in different programs and things like that. But we can go back and forth about debt and all this stuff, but at the end of the day, we are stuck with it, and we just have to probably, maybe it's a time for us to look at deep cuts. Government officials and everybody, and in essence, we have to starve together to solve this debt issue. And personally, I feel like trying to compare debt as a percentage of GDP, I think it's a poor comparison, especially when you look at per capita income. I would compare it to that. But again, that's the common formula that's used by economists. But overall, we are stuck with it, and unless we find ways to generate other revenues as opposed to what is already in place, taxes and high tariffs and so on, it's going to take us a long time to get rid of this debt. And with the current situation with many of the youth and the people who are creative and so on, not participating or being excluded from the decision making process, it's going to take a lot to really reduce that to a manageable level.
So Kerry, like a place like a sector like Carnival or arts and or entertainment industry and so on. What's your thoughts on the potential of that economy, that aspect of our economy, Carnival and so on, to really help to dent that financial burden that we seem to be under?
You mean in relation to debt that we have?
Yeah, generating income as a productive sector.
Oh yeah, I think it's a lucrative sector. Just recently I had a bunch of my white friends hit me up asking me if Carnival in Grenada is still happening. So music tourism and traveling to different places for Carnival is very lucrative. I think it's all about how we manage it. I think it's too centralized. The same for many other sectors. Too centralized. Government is too involved in this process, especially the decision making process. And we need to probably hire people for a certain purpose. I mean, numbers is everything in business, right? um and if you're not producing, maybe you have to do other things, to find ways to increase profit. But I do think we are missing out a big part in not just Carnival, but just the arts, music, television. I mean, can you name a local TV program that's been streaming, even if it's online or on one of the streaming services? We don't have that. We look at Netflix. Netflix have, and I don't mean to be, um, rude in any way, but there is a lot of African shows on there, poor audio, poorly shot, and they're making a whole lot of money. But we are just not creating any content, and I think we need to look at that. I've heard talks before about this multi-billion dollar entertainment business, but we are not getting any money from it. Instead, we are importing so much outside talent, and we have the people here that do the same thing. We have the reggae artists, we have the hip hop people, and they make good music. We have the soca, of course. We've been dominating in soca for a while, so we have the product. We're just not packaging it properly. Um, and maybe what we need is just management outside of politics, and maybe we just need to elevate our own people to a certain standards where they're viewed as local celebrity, as opposed to viewing them as a celebrity after they go out of Grenada and get featured on some foreign media. That's when we accept them. But some of these people have been grinding so much, and it happens with social media too. We have to share their music and be proud of the product we're producing. The media, the radio station have a role to play. I personally don't listen to radio whenever I'm on the island, because again, it's the same music I get when I'm here, the same hip hop stuff, and it makes you wonder if you're in Brooklyn or you're in Grenada, you can't even get a good soca or a good kaiso and things like that, or it's just saturated with Jamaican music and things like that. Not that I have any issues with Jamaican music, but sometimes we just have to highlight our own culture so that whenever tourists or whoever come here, we have our own identity in terms of music and everything like that. So again, it's all about how we market our product, but there's a lot of potential in there to make a good lot of money that can add to GDP as well.
Yeah, yes. I like what you are saying. What do you think of the state of our education?
Of our what? I'm sorry.
Education.
Well, as an educator, and I don't know if other educators would agree with me. I have a big issue with this whole Caribbean system, this centralized system with CXC and all this performance measures that we have in place. I think as an independent country, we have to develop our own standards. Um, I completed many CXC subjects, and to be frank, it didn't prepare me for college. I failed many courses and remedial classes and things like that just to get up to where. So in an essence, I had to become this self-directed learner to get to where I'm trying to get to. And even though I'm still developing, I'm close to the point where I'll be like, a researcher, scholar, whatever you want to call it. But I just don't think it prepares us to be competitive in this current world where we are competing for limited resources, where there is a lot of jobs that are remote. So I have an issue with just the structure of it. I think we need to restructure it. And I also think we need to put an emphasis on completion. We need to look at completion rates. Um, and we also need to look at just assessment in general, because we don't know whether our education is a quality education. We don't know of a ways to assess certain programs, or end of term assessment. I'm not aware of anything like that where you rate your teacher and things like that. Most of the compliments I heard about teaching is, oh, this teacher was good and this teacher was good. And that is the reason why my dissertation is focusing on the relationship between educational leadership, and the transformation of Grenada. I wanted to see if there is a link between the leaders that we have in place in education, the principal, the teachers, and whether they're really able to inspire people and mentor and nurture people to go out there and be creators. So another point too, education should also be geared towards the greatest needs of the economy. Whether it's agriculture or the health sector, we have to recognize a need and where we need people the most, and try to create incentives so that people will branch off into those fields, whether it's STEM and so on. I know we put a lot of emphasis on agriculture, as we should, because if we can feed ourselves, we certainly will starve the moment some country want to impose sanctions on us and things like that. So we should be working using our education system to pretty much help us get out of poverty, because it's probably one of the fastest ways to get out of poverty. Just basic skills, reading and writing, would do that. So I just think we just lack focus in the education system, and we also lack the ability to actually help people kind of like nurture an idea, allow them to fail and fail. I would say miserably, fail miserably, and be proud of it, because then you learn what you have to do next. Um, but and again, everything else goes back to other programs that we have in place, especially say like the Imani program and things like that. Like personally, I think a program like that should be within the formal institution. Um, I just think it's too costly. And I just think it shows that we certainly weren't able to meet objectives when people went through the school system. So we lost track of certain people when they had to go to school, and then now we're trying to make up for it. So we have a lot to do in terms of the education system, and revamp the whole system. Infrastructure, we need improvements in infrastructure. Um, and we need to find a way to use technology to our advantage as well.
I think Kalistra,
still not able to hear. Still not able to hear Kalistra.
What we have a lot of problem here with our children being sexually molested from it seems to have gotten out of hand. I personally does not think that I think we have failed them. Looking forward to the into the future, if you were to become one of our leaders, what would you do? How would you handle the what is going on with our babies?
And when you say abuse, what do you mean exactly?
Well,
Like
sexual abuse,
from in school system or just
pedophiles.
in general? Okay.
No, the pedophiles we have, it seems to be out of hand in Grenada.
That is actually a very tough question. However you look at it, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of collaboration with local police. Um, Also, parenting plays a role. Um, I think more than ever, it's parenting. We just have to be those. Like I know my parents were very strict. I wasn't out at a certain time. But now everyone has the freedom. Personally, I have a zero tolerance for stuff like that, and I think stiffer penalty will work. Um, but it is a tough issue. I just can't put my finger on what will actually solve that problem. It requires a lot of dialogue among different people, students, um, uh, law enforcement, educators as well. And we also need to look at research and look at what some of the strategies are. But I just can't say for certain what will solve that problem. I just know I have a zero tolerance for any form of child abuse, especially as a father or sexual assault. Um, and that's just where I see it right now. It takes a lot to solve such a complex problem.
Look, so Kerry, question. Based on your experience and where you're at in life right now, an election is imminent in a couple of years. Would you be jumping back on the horse?
Jump on the what you mean, like
contest another election?
I don't know actually. Like right now, I'm focused on completing my doctorate, which I have a year left. It's actually in education, educational leadership. So that's where my focus is. Since just doing that, a lot well, it kind of took me out of the country. Um, so I really don't know yet. I'm not going to rule it out, but what I do hope for is for us, fresh faces and people with ideas and everything. I think we certainly need to unite under one umbrella. I don't care if it is the Progress Party. I don't care what it is. I think the next election could be very interesting, and I've made that note to other political organization, and I challenge other politicians, other political leaders, other small organizations, um, to reach out. I think if we unite and we consolidate our ideas and things like that, I think we can really make an impact. We can be change agents. Um, but we certainly have to work together. But I just don't know right now if I will contest the next election or the one after that. Maybe the one after the upcoming one. But I'm not going to rule it out. In fact, I didn't want to even contest the last election. It's Earl Joseph. So me and Earl used to talk. It's Earl Joseph is the one that pushed me to actually contest an election. I hope he's well. Um, and that is why I jumped into the last election and I learned a lot about it. But currently, what we need is we just need not just me, we need a lot of people. We need a lot of women, and there's a lot of people who have a lot of ideas, and they're out there and they have an opinion and everything. I tell them, throw your name throw your name in the hat. Run for office is the most patriotic thing you can do. So we need a lot of more people and we need a lot more options. So example, a political organization shouldn't be scrambling to get 15 candidates. You should have so many candidates that, you have your own elections and a little runoff where you select the best candidate to represent that constituency. And that's what we need. We need a lot more people in politics.
Still not hearing you, Kalisha. I don't know. Yeah, still not hearing you. Okay, but I think you made a very important point, and well, you mentioned oil, and there are some other young guys as well who we had on the show. You guys should start meeting and speaking and see if you guys can make that a reality.
Well, like I mentioned before, usually when we have this kind of meaningful discussion, it happens in this space because, again, we all have different personality, and you're bound to have personality clashes and things like that. So it's a struggle, and different direction. We all heading in different direction. Whereas I may focus on an issue, the big picture. 50 to 100 years in the future. Some people may be focusing on solving one issue here, whether it's the judicial system or something in agriculture or things like that. But I think if we all come together and things like that, and we talk outside of this space, we can certainly come up with some great ideas and find a new way to move forward as a unified. Like, we just lack unity among young people. Even though I'm not that young, but we just lack young in politics, but we just lack that unity that we need, and respect too. I think many of us can be a little bit disrespectful, so we just have to approach each other with mutual respect and develop our trust and things like that, and not so much focus on winning. I think a lot of young politicians, especially from people that are not part of the main two organizations, they focus so much on winning, and I know for a fact when the Progress Party came on the scene that it will take time to actually win or even be relevant or be a household name where people are discussing what we're about. Everything takes time. It takes time to nurture an idea. It takes time to develop a vision. Everything takes time. So I just don't think we have to rush to do anything, but we have to be present, kind of like the lottery. You have to be in it to win it. But collectively, if we all come together, we will be an unstoppable force. Uh, I can do the military aspect of it because we do need some kind of, you know, we're going to war against other people anyways. Politics is a game as well, so I can be of any help to anyone, and I'm always open. I say it all the time. I'm always open to discussion. Everyone knows how to get a hold of me if they really want to talk. But overall, I just think we have a lot of great people, and we need more. And we just need to get together and just have that discussion and focus mainly on Grenada, not what I want or whatever it is my personality is. We just have to focus on Grenada as a whole.
Well, it seems like the four of you we've had here are all singing from the same hymn book. You all want us to get together, work together, and build a better Grenada for every one of us. As I was saying to someone today, with the young men that we had in and yourself, I feel a lot safer putting my pension into your guys' hands. I think you will look after it a lot better than the type of stories we've been hearing.
Yeah, I think many of us who are not affiliated with the main two organizations, we have our own independent voice. We can speak freely. We don't need anything from anyone. In essence, we have our own independence, whether it is financial, whatever. We are free to speak, and I think that's a starting point. But if we are to make meaningful change, it's not going to take one organization or one person. It's certainly going to take all of us. And since we all come from different background, me, military, academia, um, my TV light went out. but
Okay, we can see you. We're about to
but
we're about to wrap up soon.
again, we all have different backgrounds, and we all bring something different to the table, and we look at problems from various lenses, different lenses. And I think if we come together, we could just we could be the change agents that Grenada so desperately need. So we just have to just find a way to work together, which again is a function of leadership, just finding a way to work together, put aside our petty differences. And I think we can do it. I can't think of any major issues I have with anyone in politics, whether we disagree before. But I just think whatever issue it is, it's petty, and we can certainly put aside those petty issues and work for Grenada and try to make something happen. Because if we don't do it, we're gonna keep having this back and forth that we constantly have, and we'll be pushed to the side, and it's the people that pays for what we are not able to accomplish. Because if we really put our minds together, we can accomplish whatever it is we want to accomplish. But to do that, Grenada certainly needs a third party. And all the other people who have an independent voice or who don't align with this other political organization, we should certainly have some kind of open dialogue and try to come together, and try to find a way to just have our own platform where we have this unified voice and where we have this one leader who we can all support and put forward. There's a lot of people, I don't care if you have a college degree or not. I don't care about that. If you have the drive and your mind is in the right place, you'll certainly have my support. And if I don't run in the next election, I will certainly support someone and endorse someone, and I will open my wallet and I will certainly write a check to someone who I think are addressing some of the needs of the country. I don't care who it is. I just think we need change, and we need a new face in politics, and we need a new organization with new ideas. We need progressives, and that's what it'll take. It certainly will take a big leap. We cannot continue the same path that we on with this old politics, this back and forth. What we don't want is political organization arguing amongst themselves. The people didn't vote for that. The people who voted for people to actually set aside their differences and work together to solve problems. And we don't see that. We don't have that collaboration, whether it's with opposition and current government. Every one person is pulling that way, one organization is pulling that way, and we don't need that. We just need to find a way to work together to solve problems together and put Grenada first, and not so much look at who is occupying the office of the prime minister and things like that. So that's my whole view on how I see us moving forward and trying to solve problems and things like that.
And thank you so much, Kerry. I mean, we're out of time. But always nice to use Conversation 473 as that platform to facilitate those sorts of conversation. And I agree with you that these conversations need to transfer from Conversation 473, from the media, into rooms where we can plan, sit down, strategize, and get things going forward to build our country. Now, guys, everyone who tuned in Conversation 473 tonight, we really appreciate your support. Thank you guys for tuning in. We're going to be back on Monday, and Monday we're going to be having some of the female powerhouses within Grenada and hear their voice and let them chip into the nation building conversation as we seek to use the platform to help push Grenada forward in whatever way possible. So once you supported Conversation 473 tonight, we appreciate you. Thank you for your support. Kitaka, Rolanda, Kalistra, we're signing out for today. Have a wonderful weekend and see you guys on Monday.
Thank you, Kerry. See you when you get into Grenada.
Awesome. Thank you.
Take care of yourself.
Thank you, guys.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you. Remember to wash your hands to stop the coronavirus. Finish.
This message is brought to you by Mount Pure Mineral Water, silver medalist in the 2020 Berkeley Springs International Water Tasting Competition.